Okie dokie, let's jump into this. You may be asking yourself, what software do I need to do vector work? Do I need a real fancy computer? Or a powerful one? Nope, not at all. You can do vector work on literally any device. From a Mac, to a PC, iPad, to Chromebook, and everything in between. The tools are basically universal, with very little differences. The most popular piece of software for vector design is called Adobe Illustrator. It's also considered the industry standard and is super powerful, and also super expensive. Not to worry, if you're working on a budget or just want to try things out, there's so many alternatives to Adobe that you'll have no problem finding one that suits your needs. The software that I'll be using is called Affinity Designer. You can think of it as a cheap and powerful alternative to Adobe that's also suitable for professional work. Let's jump straight into the pen tool. Okay, so here we are. We are working within Affinity Designer. We've got the canvas here. All of these tools are pretty straightforward, and I would highly recommend, if you want to get familiar with this piece of software, or really any software that you're using, to go onto their websites, and they're typically tutorials for pretty much any piece of software you want to use. I've created a document here, and I'm going to take a sketch that I did, which is this one. I just did it on my iPad, on the plane, nothing fancy. It's not very high quality at all, but that doesn't matter. The great thing is that we can take an idea, a concept like this, and we can really flesh it out and turn it into something really refined and polished. So the first thing that we're going to do in this tutorial is learn about the pen tool while we create the feathers that are going to be part of this design. With the pen tool, we've got the ability to create lines. So if I click once and then click again, I've just created a line. I can go back to my pointer tool, and this is a line that I can modify, I can transform it, and what's really cool is that I can change the stroke. The stroke is the term of the line thickness. So right now it's 0.2 points, and I can increase it, and you'll see how it becomes very thick. So let's say I want to keep it, whatever, 3 points, 2.5, it's all good there. And now I've got my line here. And because it's a vector line that I can continually change, I can double click on it, and then it brings me over to this tool here, which is the node tool, which allows me to edit these nodes. So if I click on the point, I can drag it around, changing the line shorter, longer. And if I wanted to, I could click in between these two lines and create a new node. Now all of a sudden, I can drag that along as well. So with this shape, I can grab the pen tool again, and I can click on the end to kind of continue this design. So if I wanted to close this shape up, so instead of it just being two lines, I could click back to the beginning point. And now it's a contained shape, a triangle. So I can still modify the stroke width, no problem. But if I wanted to, I can actually fill this with a color. Let's say purple. And if I don't want that stroke, I just bring the opacity right down on it. So now I've got a unique shape. If I double click, it'll bring me into the node tool again. And from here, I can click between the line to add a new one, or with that selected, I can hit delete, the delete key, to remove that node. And I can rechange it, anything I want. So that's really cool about creating basic shapes. But let's say I want to do something a little bit more interesting, something a little bit more organic. Well, this is where you get this other smooth tool here. So if we look up top here, in Illustrator you have these same kind of tools. So in Affinity Designer you have sharp corners, you have smooth corners, you have smart corners. Really, you're going to be using sharp and smooth most of the time. So with this point selected, I'm going to click on smooth, and now what that's done has turned this sharp angle into a smooth one, and it's added these little handles. Let's go ahead and zoom in on it. So if I pull one of these handles, it's actually going to change the way that entire line bends. So I can make a really cool, interesting shape that's very organic. Same thing over here. If I click on this sharp corner and smooth it, now it's a nice smooth shape. Same thing over here. Now instead of this being a triangle, now it's some weird oblong shape. and you can refine it and get it just how you want it. So this is how we create basic shapes. And at any point, you can go back into the node selection tool, turn back to a sharp corner, or back to a smooth one. It's always editable, which is fantastic. So another way that you can start tracing out shapes is by actually drawing them with the pen tool already curved. So if I erase that and we hop back into the pen tool, let's see if we can start tracing the line of this feather. So I'm going to bring the opacity down on this a little bit, just so I can see what I'm working with. I'm going to lock that layer, and with the pen tool, I'm just going to start tracing what I have here as a starting point. So I'm going to start here in this corner, and if you click and drag, just like you would drag a file, you can see how it's already creating these handles for a curved shape. So I'm going to click and drag, and now I'm going to go to the next point and click and drag. And now I'm going to go to the next point, click and drag, the next point, click and drag, and so on and so forth. And I'm just going to quickly trace out the shape of a feather here. So I've done a path. A path allows me to fill this with color or fill out the stroke. So I'm going to turn this into, let's say, a purple one again. So I've got a purple feather here. I'm going to hide the layer, and this is what we're working with. It doesn't look the best right now, but what's super cool about being able to use a pen tool is that you can jump back in here and modify everything to your heart's content. If I want to really work on the stem here, I can bring this in, continue to tweak it until I get it just right. Maybe it's a bit too thick. Let's go ahead and thin it out. And so this is what I love most about the pen tool, is that you can spend tons of time, and typically the longer you spend on it, the better of a result you're going to get. And at any point, let's say I want to add a little bit of a fraying feather to the end of this, I'll click on this little line between these two nodes, and I can drag that out, and I can go ahead and create another node and bring this in, and bring this up, and you can grab these little handles to rearrange it. And so another great thing is you can use modifiers. So see how these are kind of curved and like, I don't really like the way it curves like that. If you hold down the Option key on a Mac, while still in the node tool, you click on a handle and it will just grab that one half, not both. So now you can click on the node, hold down Option, and now you can just modify that one line and not both. Same thing over here. And now I've got a nice sharp feather line. Look at that. Okay, I'm going to continue on with this so you can kind of watch this whole process of me bringing this feather to life. Okay, so I've got a feather here. I've clicked around, I've worked on it a little bit, and you know what? I'm cool with this as a beginning shape. And we'll continue to refine it even more. So if we wanted to, we could even duplicate this layer. And now we can move it around, rotate it, flip it. If we want, we can make it a bit skinnier. And now I've got two feathers here that I can play with. And you see how they're overlapping? This is something that we can continue to refine until we're happy with it. And I can do that same way I did before. Now that I've got the second shape, just bring this in and continue to work on it. So I'm gonna tweak these feathers a little bit more. And when we come back in the next video, we're gonna take these feathers and we're going to create the shape of the box here that's going to link up with the deadly feathers that we're working on right now.